Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, I've been thinking back in different times in my life, different things that I've learned as I've gone forward fishing. And one of the things I remember, and for some reason I've thought about it in years, but when my nephew Billy, who is now a professor at James Madison University, but when he was a kid, he had a pet Oscar fish. Now, an Oscar, some of you might know what Oscars are, but they aren't native to this area. They're a fish that was brought into like the Florida area. They're kind of like a bass, but they're real popular in aquariums. So anyway, he had this pet Oscar. Now, there's a reason I'm telling you this story, but I remember I was dumbfounded when I would come into his house and watch how that Oscar would react when it saw Billy. Now, it would see all of us because the tank was clear, and it'd be laying there in its tank, and it'd be watching. And it'd see us come in, and you could see difference in its fins and its reaction. And when it saw Billy, it would go all excited, and it would come over, and it would be waiting for him to give it some food. But it recognized his face over and above the rest of us. And why should we be so surprised at that? You know, we know that crows can tell the difference between people. Fish are very similar to birds in a lot of ways. My point is, if this fish had enough intelligence or whatever we want to call that, smarts in its brain, that it could identify people, then it tells us that these fish that we fish for lack of a better way of putting it, are smarter than we might think. And if they're that smart, they can learn whether a lure is something they want to hit or not. In other words, we put a lure down there, they come up, they think, oh boy, that's food, I'm going to bite it. They bite it and they get hooked, or they get pricked, or something happens. Either they get caught or they have to battle. They're going to remember that. And they soon learn what's good and what's bad because they're more intelligent. Again, I hate using these words, but they're more aware than we might think. And I think back to that Oscar and how much it really did learn. Fish learn. They learn what's safe and what's unsafe. And as fishermen, I think it helps us if we understand that some of the stories we hear about fish learning, that fish that they get fished a lot with this hot bait. We hear about this hot bait that's so great, but then the next year that bait might not work well at all because the fish remember it. So I guess the point of this report is me telling you the story about my nephew's pet fish, but why that fish became a pet. Because it had enough intelligence to learn things. And fish in the wild especially, I think, can be a lot smarter than we might think. And it makes the challenge of fishing all that much greater. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.